Hi, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog, and today we're going to be going over QuickBooks Point of Sale PI. And so we're going to get started here in just a little bit. I see some people still joining and getting our names in, so we'll give it just a few minutes and we'll get started. Again, this is Liz with Big Hairy Dog, and today we're going to be going over QuickBooks POS Physical Inventory. And as a heads up, today I do have a scanner attached to my system. Big Hairy Dog does rent scanners. I'm using an older model, a Metro Logic scanner, but we do have some. There are also newer scanners available for sale. Those Cipher Labs that are very sleek and just as user friendly as our old ones and our rented ones. So we'll go ahead and get started here in just a second. Thanks so much. Okay, I think we actually have just about everybody who is registered, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Again, my name is Liz. Everyone right now is muted. If you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand, or you can just go ahead and type out the question, and I'll try to go ahead and I'll try my best to keep an eye out for that, so I can go ahead and answer them as they come along. But the nice thing about QuickBooks Point of Sale, it is extremely user-friendly, and I'm sure we're going to go ahead and make it through this PI relatively quickly. So there's going to be plenty of time for any other additional questions at the end of our session here. All right, so to get started, so of course we're going to go ahead and jump into QuickBooks. There's a few things that we always like to go ahead and prepare before we actually start our PI. Of course, we're always going to recommend that you do a backup. Besides running your backup, I would also like to take this time to ask, do you know where you can find your most current backup? If the answer to that is yes, great job. We want to go ahead and make sure that you're double checking that occasionally so we can go ahead and make sure that you have a viable backup just in case anything happens. If the answer to that question is no, give us a call. We are more than happy to go ahead and show you where you can check your backup and where exactly where you can go ahead and get those secondary backups. We really want to make sure, again, if anything happens, that you guys are prepared and ready and we're not losing any data. So I'm going to go ahead and pop over here. And actually, just really quick, for those of you who are unsure of where to check, this is my main, my server. If you're in a multi-store environment, this is going to be your main at your secondary stores, and then your main at HQ is going to have even higher privileges than that. But really, this is my main. I'm going to go ahead and jump into preferences, company preferences, and right here, right at the very top in our general, our data safeguard automatically back up or create backups of our company file. So I do have it set to once a day when I exit point of sale. For a lot of you, that's not going to be the best way to go ahead and have it set up. Maybe you don't actually close point of sale. We have to exchange in the middle of the night. So if that's not happening, we want to make sure that we are doing every day at a given time. We want to make sure that we're avoiding, our exchange times. And then there actually shows you exactly where it's backing up to. So that in my case, it would be my C Windows users, public documents, Intuit, and this is essentially the default location. I've never changed it. If you've changed your default location, this might be different, but that Windows user public documents is usually a really good place to start if you're looking for your most recent backup. All right. Besides making that backup, we're going to go ahead and want to test our scanners. Now, if you're renting with Big Hairy Dog, we're going to go ahead and set up an appointment so we can help you set up those scanners and test them, make sure that everything is working appropriately, and we usually do this the day before your PI. If you purchased your own and you have your own scanners, especially if we only use them for PI, would definitely recommend pulling them out, making sure that you remember how to use them, and that, of course, our connections are all still good before we go ahead and start our PI. And again, I would suggest that the day before. And lastly, for prep is your zone map. No matter how small or how big your store is, we're always going to go ahead and try to stress the importance of using a zone map. It is going to be much easier to deal with any bad scams if we know kind of where we have to go within the store instead of this is just a scan somewhere in my store. If I know I have to go to aisle 4, perfect. Chances are I'm going to find that item much, much faster. All right. And so really quick, if you do have your own scanners at home, I'm going to go ahead and hop into File, Hardware Setup Wizard. You can also go ahead and do this from Preferences, Workstation Preferences, and your Physical Inventory Scanner. Workstation Preferences are a little bit easier in my opinion just because you can hop directly to the area that you're looking for without having to go ahead and say, yeah, I have a cash register, I have a regular scanner, all that good stuff. And so especially when it's connected, it should default, but this is where we might actually need to come in here if it's set to none and find our scanner and make sure that we know what COM port it's attached to. If you have any trouble with this at all, give us a call. We're more than happy to go ahead and help you. And then, of course, we can go ahead and test the physical inventory scanner right here from our Workstation Preferences as well. And once we get the OK here in Workstation Preferences, we know it's going to work beautifully in my PI tool. I actually did get a chance to test this right before, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. All right. So at this point, we've backed up. There are additional on-hand reports that we can run that is optional. Some people really do like to go and run a quick on-hand report before they run their PI, and then they run another on-hand report once they're done. Some people just like to look at the PI discrepancies report that gets printed at the end of the PI. Whatever best suits your needs is what you're going to go ahead and tackle. But to get started, I'm going to go ahead and go to the Inventory tab, and I'm going to come on down to, Start Physical Inventory. All right, so that Start Physical Inventory takes a snapshot of my current inventory, and then it essentially just lists it all for me, like a giant Excel spreadsheet. Just like in every other place in QuickBooks, this is all customizable, and I can sort by any of these columns. So I can sort by item number, item name, description. This might actually help you in, breaking out your zones as well. If you wanted to go, if you got to this point and you realize you didn't really go ahead and break anything out, maybe we can filter by department, and then we have at least some kind of breakout, and we can go ahead and just make sure that people aren't jumping into other departments and rescanning items. It's another really important reason why zones are going to be a lifesaver. If I can tell you you're doing aisle 1 and 2 and you're doing aisle 3 and 4, I can guarantee that we're not going to accidentally go ahead and start scanning each other's items and creating duplicates. Well, not necessarily duplicates, but really inflating our inventory quantity. All right. And so from here, this is essentially how you would run a manual count. I can just go in here and say, yes, I have 2, yes, I have 10, and I can make my way down the entire list. But with a giant inventory, chances are we're going to want to go ahead and utilize some scanners, or maybe we're going to break it apart a little separately. But I'm going to go ahead and come over here to the I want to. And because I have a scanner attached, I can add counts from scanner. If you don't have your scanner attached or it's not properly attached, these will be grayed out. I'm going to actually run a quick clear count and restart. I'm going to say yes, start over. And I'm doing that because I'd actually tested my scanner a little while ago and I uploaded some scans. So I want to really make sure that this is fresh. All right. From there, I want to go ahead and also show you guys the add counts by hand. This screen is going to look pretty much exactly the same. This is where I can either scan or type in the item. So if I even typed in item number 1, actually I might not have that item number 1. I might have gotten rid of it at this point. But I can see I have item 238. I can hit enter, quantity. It'll default to 1, of course, but we can go ahead and overwrite that. And it'll automatically add. And now I can go ahead and continue to add counts by hand. I can go ahead and also switch what my enter key does. So if I hit enter now, instead of jumping to quantity, it's just going to add a single quantity of 1. If you're doing them by hand, chances are you're going to leave that at the go to quantity field. It's going to be much easier for you. All right. If you've made a mistake, we can remove item, but other than that, you can just hit save, and that will add the that excuse me, that'll add that count to our counted column. I also want to go ahead and say I want to add counts, and I'm going to go ahead and say add counts from the scanner. On my scanner, my MetroLogic scanner, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I wake it up because I've left it alone for a little bit. Now we're going to have three options on these MetroLogic scanners: collect data, upload data, and utilities. And really, these are very, very user-friendly. Collect data allows us to scan, and we have two options when we're scanning. You can either just scan, similar to my add counts by hand, and just hit that add item, so it just grabs one. Or we can go ahead and scan and enter quantity. So it's going to work just like my go to quantity field. It's going to scan my barcode and give me the opportunity to enter a quantity. That option is great when you're trying to go ahead and enter in cases or things that are in boxes that you can physically see how much they are, but I'm not pulling out every one of those items to scan the barcode. All right. And once we're ready to go ahead and add these counts from the scanner, we're just going to go ahead and hit the upload data. We want to pop that back into its cradle. And I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And I'm going to go ahead and hit next once I hit upload. Oh, looks like I got a failed. Let me go ahead and, in this case, let me make sure that my cradle is docked properly. All right, and let's try this upload. Okay. So of course there we go. All right. So Murphy's Law, of course, we get a chance to test it, but then when push comes to shove, we got a little bit of an issue. That was just the docking. So all I had to do was kind of remove it from the cradle, pop it back in. Again, that's why it's so important that we go ahead and test these before we start. But now we can go ahead and see I have my physical, or I have my scans all ready to be loaded. So I have 60 scans in total, 58 good scans, and look at that, I got 2 bad scans. And so bad scans are not the end of the world. A bad scan usually means that you scanned a barcode that just doesn't exist in your inventory. Could have been, the packing slip barcode by mistake instead of the vendor's UPC or instead of our own barcode. These things happen. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit close here. And there we go. I can actually, it defaults to opening up all my unrecognized scans. And really, it looks like there's more than there is, but it's hard to tell. But these guys in red here are the unrecognized items. What this tab does is it shows you the item that you scanned right before the unrecognized item and then right after the unrecognized item. Again, if we're using zones, this is super helpful. If I know to go to aisle, it's only aisle 2 and 3 that I'm looking for or looking at. I know exactly where my women's running shoes are, and I know where my youth baseball bats are. So the unrecognized item was the item I scanned right in between there, and I can see that scan value is 70. So I can go ahead and go take a look for that value. I can go look for that item. So you can go ahead and print these unrecognized scans, so that way you can go ahead and, like I said, get at least that number, so we can go ahead and confirm that that is in fact the same item. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and come over here to my item scans. And so these are all the good scans that I got. So those 2 aisles were pretty good in total, except for those 2 items. And you can actually see it was the same one. So I'm really just looking for one item that I just happened to both times around scan the incorrect barcode. Now over here, I can just go ahead and say select all, and I say, yes, these are all my good scans. I know that nobody else scanned this zone, and I'm complete. My zone is complete. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save selected, and then I'll go rescan those 2 items that I couldn't, that I didn't get a chance to go ahead and scan the right barcode the first time. And now, when I hit save selected, we're going to get this additional pop-up. We only get this pop-up because I have those bad scans. So unrecognized scans will not be saved. If you wish to review them later, it is recommended that you print them now. Would you like to? And so I'm going to say, especially if you have more than a few of them, print them. Even if you don't end up using them, it's better to print them than to, not have them and need them. Personally, I know what this item is, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit no. All right. And so that added my counts to the screen. The only reason why you're not seeing anything here is because this is, remember, my entire inventory. And I only scanned a little bit of items over here. So really those guys are going to be actually probably much further down. I have them in ascending order. There we go. Or descending order, I guess. So we have all of our scans that we just uploaded, and I can already see I have some pretty big discrepancies. I've not completed my whole store, so maybe a few of these are hiding in some other aisles. So I'm really not going to be concerned with those discrepancies until I'm just about ready to go ahead and update my inventory, because that means I've completed all of my zones. I've dealt with any bad scans that came up, and I still have items either missing or I found more items than QuickBooks thought I had. All right, and now on the scanner, our Metro Logic scanners, whenever you remove them from, or whenever you complete a upload, it will automatically want to clear your data. So you can go ahead and just clear all and get started on your new zone, knowing that your scans are safe in QuickBooks. Or we can go ahead and cancel, and you can keep that zone or keep those scans. Now, with the Cypher Lab scanners, those ones do want you to go ahead and delete them, and there's a few steps to doing that. We'll go ahead and walk you through those. On my side, I'm just going to go ahead and delete my scans. It asks me, are you sure? I'm going to say yes, and delete it, and I'm ready to go ahead and collect a new fresh zone. All right. So I know we've gone through, technically quite a bit so far. A lot of it was prep, but once we get our scans in, we're pretty much almost done. Do we have any questions at all so far about getting scans into QuickBooks? All right, I'm not seeing any hands just yet. Like I said, we'll have more time afterwards for anyone like me who might be a slower typer. So besides that, like I said, we can go ahead and continue adding additional scans. I'm not going to go ahead and put you guys through actually updating every single quantity in my inventory. But over here in the I want to, I just wanted to point out we also have a clear counts from scanner. And over here, this will actually walk you through how to do this yourself. And so if you ever forget or you accidentally hit cancel and you weren't sure how to go ahead and then delete those scans that are currently in your scanner, it's okay. Just hit that delete, clear counts from scanner, and it'll really walk you through it. So over here, next, next, next. This doesn't actually do anything besides tell you how to do this on the physical inventory scanner that you have in your hand. Now I can close that. All right. Let's go ahead and say that we've gotten to the point where I'm done collecting my scans. If I wanted to, I can, again, continue to add counts by hand. The other thing I want to mention is that we actually just completed a zone, right? So I've just completed that zone. And I'm going to go ahead and maybe go send somebody to deal with those bad counts that I just printed out. But other than that, I want to go ahead and actually save and continue, because I have these options: revert to last save. And so let's say I'm doing the next zone, and I realize that I didn't finish scanning everything, or I think I accidentally double counted what somebody else counted, and I've already put those scans into the system. I could then just revert to last save and kind of start that zone completely over again. Again, very, very user-friendly, very simple to go ahead and use. I can also go ahead and run additional reports from here under the I Want To tab. I can even go ahead and take a pause from my PI and jump into that report center if I wanted more options than just what's here available to me currently. These detail reports, though, because I haven't finished the PI. If you'll notice, it says previous in there. So this is going to just refer to the previous time I ran and completed a PI. Again, discrepancies don't really matter until we are about to upload or about to apply those changes, and I know I've counted everything. Now, the next thing I wanted to go ahead and point out, of course, was my set all items not counted to 0. So with this unchecked, that's a good way of running cycle counts. So if I wanted just to go ahead and do a specific department or just a specific vendor, I can absolutely go ahead and do that. And I can still utilize my physical inventory tool to help me. You could also run adjustment memos to do something similar. Because at the end of the day, your physical inventory, this whole thing is essentially just a giant adjustment memo. We're telling it what to adjust to, and it's doing it. Now, if I do set all items not counted to 0, this is something that you only want to use when you are running a complete PI. That's because this will capture any of our negative items. See, like this item here, 315. So this has a -10 quantity. If I actually have 0 of that item in my store, it is impossible for me to scan that item. You can't scan a 0 quantity. But if I go ahead and set all items not counted to 0, it will adjust that up to my 0. And of course, it'll go ahead and add to my, more than expected, less than expected, and my net differences. But again, that is something that I have to go ahead and accept if I want my inventory to get back to square one here. All right. So we've uploaded our scans. We've completed zones. Let's say I set somebody back to deal with those bad scans, and we found the item. Yes, we had accidentally scanned in the wrong barcode. I can then hit I want to add counts by hand, and I can add that actual item by hand. So if I know that that item was number 68, we'll just add that. And a tab over, and it was 2 that I was missing. 2 were in that area, so we're going to go ahead and just hit add and save. All right, so we've now dealt with our bad scans. We got all of our zones in there, and I have it selected to set all items not counted to 0, so it'll capture and correct all of my negative quantity items. Now I can go ahead and, well, I'll save, I can also apply changes to my inventory. Now, when I apply changes to my inventory, it's going to go ahead and let me know that adjustment memos will be recorded for any quantity differences. Yes. One giant adjustment memo. And so these are the reports that we get to go ahead and run at the end of our PI. So our differences report or our PI detail report, which is going to be all items. Personally, I might be only interested in the differences. If I'm right on the money in all my other items, then we're fine. All right. And again, I have a pretty big data, like a demo data set in here, but we only did a single zone. So I'm going to have quite a bit of discrepancies here. But once we get this, we can either print it out. The other thing that we can do, and that I might do before we go ahead and start the PI, you can always do it afterwards as well, is modify this report. Take a look at what that PI differences report is giving you, and if you don't necessarily need so much space in attribute and size, but we want this to be able to print in one section, or we also want A, B, and C on this report. We can go ahead and do that before we get to this point, and that way it'll go ahead and print out exactly what we need. So I can go ahead and just exit there. I hop into that report center now, my all reports. Okay. And oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going about this the wrong way. Go ahead and grab that report that I needed. Our detail report, here we go. And so over here on that detail report, then I can, like I said, add, remove columns. You can change the report appearance. That's going to be more like just fonts and titles. And then access level, of course, it's a security access level. If you're not currently using security access level for reports, it's something that is an option, but absolutely not mandatory. If you're not requiring your users to log in, then access levels aren't really going to apply to you anyways. If everyone is signing in as sysadmin, then everyone's going to have full access to everything. And that's the other thing I think that you have to consider with a PI is who is allowed to do what. And of course, if you are in a multi-store environment, usually the stores go ahead and handle their own PI. There are some instances where the HQ wants to go ahead and be able to handle that for the stores, and the stores will do kind of more of a manual tally on paper, and we'll send that over to HQ. So just consider how you want things run. The more that you can go ahead and set up and lay down the groundwork, the easier your PI will be. And ultimately, the hardest part of the PI when it rolls around is making sure that our scanners are functioning appropriately and that we are organized, that people are not accidentally going into each other's zones. All right. And so, like I said, that one brings us pretty much to the end of our zone. Let me go ahead and check our agenda, or the end of our PI, excuse me. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm not missing anything. So we did talk about backing up, the importance of testing your scanners and zone maps. We did get a chance to go ahead and upload a basic zone using a scanner, and we got a chance to take a look at what a bad scan might look like if we're using a scanner. We did get a chance to go ahead and take a look at that discrepancies report. And I showed you guys how to go ahead and take a look at the discrepancies directly in your PI, your PI spreadsheet. And some people actually do like to also sort that by my most expensive items. And so really, if it costs me 5 cents and it's a $1 item, I don't care if I'm missing a few of them. But if it's a $500 item, I might really care if I'm missing even one. And then besides that, of course, we got a chance to update that PI, being mindful of whether we're updating all quantities or only the items we scanned. And that final reminder that all quantities is going to be what you need to use for a complete store PI, because that will capture all of those negative quantities and get them back up to 0. All right. So that was a lot of me talking. Again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and stick around. I'm going to hang tight for a little bit. If anybody has any questions, if I can spell my name right. All right. So I am Liz at bighairydog.com, Liz M. Please feel free to go ahead and email me any questions that you have, or if you are interested in, learning a little bit more about renting scanners. I will say for QuickBooks scanners, we have a very limited amount. So if you're interested in renting, I would try to go ahead and check in with us early, especially if you're planning on doing your PI towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year. Usually that's when everyone wants to do their PI, so we need to kind of juggle our scanners a little bit. But besides that, thank you so much for joining me today. And like I said, I'll hang tight if anybody has any questions. All right, so we do have a quick question. So going into a little bit more detail on breaking the physical hand count into departments. Absolutely. And so one more time, I'm going to go into my inventory, start physical inventory, because we want to kind of get back to that point. And so if you're at this point here and we just wanted to go ahead and maybe print out something that our associates can see what's expected, and they have a spot to go ahead and put in accounted. Again, we can run those on hand reports, and we can actually modify one of those on hand reports to just kind of have a blank space. And we can filter that by department. We can also do that here. So I can go ahead and create filters. and I can go ahead and look for certain departments. So here, if I wanted to kind of just take a look at my boxing equipment, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And so actually it looks like I didn't have any items in that boxing equipment. Let me go ahead and get a few more. Let's see if I have some menswear. Okay, save, and let's just, because I'll probably use this on my next one. There we go. All right, so now we're looking at men's. So this is specifically just my men's department. I have both men's shoes and clothing, but in my quote unquote store, they're in the same area. So we're going to go ahead and separate that out. I can go ahead and print this, and I can go ahead and print out the worksheet. And you see now this prints out something where I can hand this to my associate, show them, all right, this is what it's expected. I need you to tell me what the actual physical count is. And then when they bring this back to me, I can go ahead and enter those in via the add counts by hand. And I can use my item numbers and then just enter whatever physical count they had. So I'm just going to close this for just a moment and then remind you that I can come over to the add counts by hand. And with that in my hand, I can go ahead and say, all right, 105, my associate says that they have a quantity of 10, and I can just keep going on down the line. Again, much more manual, but can be a lifesaver, especially if something happens to a scanner. All right. Perfect. And you're very welcome, Brandon. Thanks so much for the question. I appreciate it. All right. Again, we'll wait another few minutes. If there's no other questions, I think I'm going to let you guys go for today. Again, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. Thanks so much for joining us.